Linda Walker's scissors stopped mid-cut when the alarm screamed through forward operating base Phoenix at 0347 hours. Use 4 Navy SEALs, the same men whose hair she'd trimmed 8 hours earlier, were gone. Vanished into mountains crawling with hostiles. Command called it a death sentence. 52 enemy fighters had them surrounded. Execution scheduled for dawn. But Linda wasn't who anyone thought she was. And tonight, the woman they knew as their quiet base hairdresser was about to remember exactly who she used to be. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button and stay with me until the end of this story. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this journey travels. Linda's scissors moved. Chen settled into the chair. His left shoulder dipped, compensating. Just a trim today, ma'am. Same as always. Snip, snip. The rhythm never changed. Her hands steady. Her eyes tracking everything Chen didn't know he was showing. Big night tonight. Routine reconnaissance. His jaw tightened on the word routine. Coruscant Valley. In and out before breakfast. Linda's scissors didn't pause. You stay safe out there. Always do, ma'am. He stood, dropped $5 on the counter. She didn't touch it. Haircuts are free on base. I know. He pushed it toward her. But you make the best small talk in this whole desert. He walked out. Linda's hands were steady as she cleaned her scissors. But that word routine sat wrong in her chest. Nothing about tonight was routine. Morrison came in next. He dropped into the chair like his bones hurt. The usual, Lieutenant. Yeah. His hand went to his lower back. Old injury, maybe. Short on the sides, blend the top. Linda's fingers found the knots at the base of his skull. Tension. Sleep deprivation. The particular weight of keeping men alive. You doing okay? Morrison's eyes met hers in the mirror. Just for a second. Something flickered there. Recognition almost. Then gone. Long week, he said. They all are out here. True enough? The scissors snipped. Linda breathed slowly. In through the nose, out through the mouth. An old habit. The kind that kept your heart rate at 60 when you were taking a shot from 800 meters. You got family back home, sister in Oregon. 2 kids I've never met. Morrison's voice carried something heavy. What about you? No family. This is home now. Funny place to call home. Funny world we live in. Morrison almost smiled. Linda finished his cut, brushed him off, watched him walk out. His gait was wrong, stiff in the hips, old injury compensating. He was running at maybe 80%, and tonight he was leading a team into hostile territory. The cold thing crawling up Linda's spine grew teeth. Ramirez came in at 1700 hours, Chief Petty Officer, 41 years breathing, 22 years in the teams, and scared. Not obviously. But Linda saw it in the way he gripped the armrests, the way his eyes tracked to the door. Evening, Chief? Evening, ma'am. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Just a cleanup before we head out. Linda draped the cape, lifted her scissors. Big one tonight. They're all big ones. Her hands moved through his salt and pepper hair. She felt the tremor in his shoulders. Not fear. Never fear. Wait. You know what I miss most, Ramirez said suddenly. What's that? Sunday mornings. His voice went quiet. Me, my wife, the girls. Kitchen smells like pancakes. Nobody shooting at anything. Nobody dying. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. Crayon stick figures holding hands. Just regular life. Linda's scissors stopped. Just a fraction of a second. Sounds perfect, she said softly. It was. Ramirez met her eyes in the mirror. For a moment, just a moment, Linda let him see past the mask. Let him see the woman who understood that longing, who'd walked away from everything to chase quiet mornings and nobody dying. Ramirez's eyes widened. "Ma'am, are you—" "All done, Chief." Linda's voice was bright again. Professional. She whisked the cape off. "You stay safe out there." Ramirez stood slowly, looked at her for a long beat. "You too, ma'am." "I'm just cutting hair, Chief. Can't get much safer than that." "Right." But his eyes said he wasn't sure anymore. He walked out. Linda's hands finally trembled. Martinez came in last. The team medic. Baby-faced, 28. Hands that could patch a sucking chest wound or hold a dying man while he slipped away. "Hey, Doc." "Hey, ma'am." He slumped into the chair. "Just whatever. I don't care." Linda started cutting. The silence stretched. 5 minutes. "Can I ask you something?" Martinez said. "Sure." "Do you ever feel like you're just pretending to be normal?" He stared at his reflection. "Like you're playing this role of being okay, but underneath you're someone completely different." Linda's hands didn't stop moving, but her heart rate kicked up. "What makes you ask that? I don't know." He touched the crayon drawing Ramirez had shown her, same 3 stick figures folded in Martinez's pocket, too. "Sometimes I look in the mirror, and I don't recognize the guy looking back. Like the things I've seen, the things I've done, they've turned me into somebody else. And I'm just pretending to be the person I used to be." Linda met his eyes in the mirror. Really met them. Maybe that's not pretending. Maybe that's just surviving. "Is there a difference?" "I think so." Her voice was gentle. "Pretending means you're lying. Surviving means you're adapting, finding a way to keep going even when everything's changed." Martinez was quiet. Linda finished his cut. He stood. She caught his wrist. "Just for a second. Doc, whatever happens tonight, you did everything you could. Remember that. Whatever happens, it's not on you." His eyes went wide. "Ma'am, how did you—" "Just a feeling." She let go. Smiled. "Stay sharp out there." Martinez left without another word, but he kept looking back. Linda closed the shop at 1800 hours, cleaned her scissors, swept the floor, locked the door, walked to her quarters. She sat on her cot, breathed, counted heartbeats. Outside voices called, boots on gravel. A radio played country music somewhere. Linda stared at her hands, soft hands, hands that smelled like shampoo. She turned them over. The calluses had almost faded. Almost. 3 years since Captain Linda Shadow Walker Special Activities Division had walked away. 3 years since Aleppo. Crosshairs on a target. 1 high-value kill. Acceptable collateral damage, 12 civilians. "Take the shot, Shadow." "Negative. Too much collateral." "That's not your call, Captain." "Take the shot." Her finger on the trigger. 140 grams of pressure. 12 people drinking tea. Shadow. No. That word ended everything. They pulled her clearance, buried her file, offered her a deal. Disappear quietly. Take a nothing job on a nothing base. Pretend she never existed. So she became a hairdresser. For 3 years she cut hair and made small talk. It had almost worked. Almost. The alarm went off at 03:47 hours. Linda was already awake, already dressed, already listening to the instinct that had been screaming since Morrison left her chair. The compound erupted, boots running, voices shouting. Linda pulled on her boots, grabbed her jacket, slipped out. Nobody noticed. Nobody ever noticed Linda Walker. The operations center hummed with electronics and panic. Linda slipped in through the back entrance, melted into shadows. 20 personnel crowded around monitors. Colonel Davidson stood at the center, face carved from stone. "Sit, Rep," he barked. A lieutenant at the drone console pulled up thermal imagery. His hands shook. "Sir, we have visual on the SEAL element. Grid November Whiskey 4723. They're stationary, surrounded." The screen showed 4 heat signatures, ringed by dozens more. Linda counted instantly. 52 hostiles. 4 SEALs. "Christ," someone whispered. "How did this happen?" Davidson's voice was ice. The intel officer stepped forward, sweating. "Sir, it was bait. They were waiting." "Who's they?" "Regional militia commander, former Taliban, calls himself the Wolf. He's got them boxed in. 3 machine gun positions. Sniper overwatch. 50-plus fighters." The officer paused. "They're waiting for dawn, sir. Public execution. They're going to film it." Silence. Linda's heart stayed steady. 60 beats per minute. Combat calm. "Options," Davidson said. "We can't get air support fast enough. Even if we could, the collateral damage. What about extraction?" The operations major shook his head. "Sir, we'd need a platoon. Full support package. Probably take 50% casualties getting in." He paused. "Those boys are already dead. We just haven't gotten the video yet." Several people looked away. Davidson's jaw worked. "So we just wait. Watch 4 Navy SEALs get executed at sunrise." "Sir, I don't see another option." Linda stepped forward. Her body moved before her mind caught up. "There's always another option," she said quietly. 20 heads turned. Most didn't even know her name. "Who the hell are you?" Davidson demanded. "Linda Walker, base hairdresser." Her voice stayed level. "And I'm telling you there's another option." "Unless you've got a regiment in your pocket, ma'am, I'd appreciate it if you'd return to quarters." Linda looked at the screen, studied the terrain, counted firing positions, calculated distances, her mind already running the op. "How long until dawn?" 4 hours, 20 minutes. "That's enough time." The major laughed. "Ma'am, with all due respect, you cut hair. This is—" "How many missions have you run, Major?" His smile died. "Excuse me. Operational missions. Behind enemy lines. How many—" "I don't see how that's 37. Linda's voice didn't rise. "That's how many I've run. And I never lost anyone." The room went quiet. Davidson's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "I can't. Not here. But those 4 men don't have to die tonight. They just need someone to go get them." 1 person against 50-plus hostiles. Linda met his eyes. "In 4 hours, those men are dead, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if there was anything you could have done differently." She paused. "So here's what I'm offering, Colonel. I'm offering you a chance to wonder about something else instead." Davidson stared at her. Really looked at her for probably the first time since she'd arrived 6 months ago. Looked past the honey blonde hair and the small town smile. Whatever he saw there made him pale. "Who are you?" he whispered. "Someone who used to do this for a living." Linda's voice stayed steady. "And someone who's watched 4 good men prepare for a mission they might not come back from. I cut their hair, Colonel. I heard them talk about their families. And I'm not going to stand here and watch them die when I might be able to stop it. Might? Nothing's guaranteed in this business. You know that. Davidson looked at the screen. Back at Linda. I could have you detained. You could? This is insane. Yes, sir. If you fail, 4 men die and I lose whatever the hell you are. Linda smiled. For the first time since arriving at Phobie Phoenix, she let them see the shadow underneath. If I fail, Colonel, those men were dead anyway. At least this way they'll die knowing someone tried. 10 seconds of silence. Then Davidson turned to his operations officer. Get her a map and everything she needs. I don't want to know any more than that. Sir, that's an order, Major. Linda was already moving toward the door. Walker, Davidson called. She turned. I'm going to regret this, aren't I? Probably, sir. She smiled, but not as much as you'd regret doing nothing. She walked out. The woman who'd been cutting hair for 3 years began to remember. Her quarters were dark. Linda locked the door, stood in front of the mirror. The woman looking back was familiar. Honey blonde hair, hazel eyes, face people forgot, but underneath something else was waking up. She reached up, pulled the mirror off the wall, behind it a hidden compartment cut into the metal. Inside, HK-416 rifle suppressed, night vision optics, climbing harness, medical kit, comms gear, and a small leather ID case she hadn't opened in 3 years. Linda pulled it out, flipped it open. The face was younger, harder angles, colder eyes. But it was her. Captain Linda Walker, Special Activities Division, classified, top secret, no foreign. She closed it, set it aside. Then she began to arm herself. Rifle check, magazine count, optics function. Every piece of gear weighed against what she'd need versus what would slow her down. She was stripping her weapon when the memory hit. Rain. Aleppo. 3 years ago. Shadow, you have the shot. Confirm. 1,000 meters. Crosshairs steady. Target sitting in a cafe. 12 civilians drinking tea. Shadow, do you copy? Take the shot. Negative. Too much collateral. That's not your call, Captain. The order is given. Take the shot. Her finger on the trigger. 140 grams of pressure. Kill the monster. Accept the cost. 12 people who'd done nothing wrong. Shadow, no. Linda finished checking her rifle. That's why she walked away. Not because she couldn't kill, but because being good at it didn't mean she had to keep doing it. There was supposed to be a line between necessary and expedient, between war and murder. She'd found that line in a cafe in Aleppo, and she'd chosen to walk away rather than cross it. For 3 years, she'd cut hair. Tried to convince herself she'd made the right choice. Now 4 men were going to die at dawn, and Linda realized maybe the line wasn't about never using violence again. Maybe it was about choosing when and why. Being willing to be lethal when it served life, not just feeding the machine. She strapped on her gear, caught her reflection one last time. Different skills for different wars, she murmured. Then she grabbed her rifle, slipped through the camera gaps she'd mapped 6 months ago, and vanished into the desert night. The base fell away behind her. Linda moved fast. No hesitation now. The desert stretched ahead. 40 kilometers to the valley. 90 minutes if she pushed hard. Her lungs burned, legs screamed. 3 years of cutting hair hadn't kept her in operator shape, but muscle memory was a strange thing. Her body remembered, even when her mind doubted. She ran, one foot in front of the other, terrain masking, night vision down, breath control. The mountains grew closer. 4 hours until dawn. 4 good men were alive. That was enough. Linda Walker's shadow ran toward the sound of her own heartbeat and the weight of 52 enemy fighters who didn't know she was coming. Behind her, FOB Phoenix hummed in the darkness. Ahead, 4 Navy SEALs waited to die. And somewhere between the base and the mountains, a hairdresser became a ghost again. The scissors were back in the drawer. Now it was time for cutting of a different kind. 40 kilometers felt like 400. Linda's boots hit sand. Again. 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 Her lungs burned. Not the clean burn of a training run. The ragged burn of a body that had spent 3 years cutting hair instead of running ops. But her legs remembered the rhythm. Her breath found the pattern. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Don't think about the distance. Think about the next 100 meters, then the next 100 after that. The desert stretched endlessly under night vision, green and grainy and empty. No roads, no landmarks, just sand and rock and the distant teeth of mountains cutting into the sky. Linda checked her watch without breaking stride. 412 hours. 73 minutes since she'd left the base. 17 kilometers covered. 23 to go. Her body screamed. Her mind stayed quiet. That's what 3 years hadn't changed. The ability to shut off the part of her brain that said this is impossible and just run toward the thing that needed doing. Morrison's face flashed through her mind. His stiff gait. His sad smile when he talked about his sister's kids he'd never met. Ramirez. Sunday mornings. Pancakes. Nobody dying. Martinez. Do you ever feel like you're pretending to be normal, Chen? The way he'd pushed that $5 across the counter? You make the best small talk in this whole desert. Linda ran faster. The mountains grew closer. Shadows resolving into ridgelines and valleys. Somewhere in there, 4 men sat bound while 52 fighters waited for sunrise. Her watch beeped. 0443 hours. 10 kilometers out. She slowed to a jog, then a walk. Breathing hard but controlled. Her body needed recovery time before the real work started. And she needed to think. Linda dropped behind an outcropping, pulled out her tablet. The terrain map glowed softly satellite imagery Davidson's people had uploaded before she left. The valley spread before her in pixels and topographic lines. A natural amphitheater. Mountains on 3 sides. Single exit to the east. The SEALs were in the center. 4 heat signatures. Stationary. The enemy formed 3 concentric rings. Inner ring. 12 fighters. Close quarters. Probably the execution detail. Middle ring, 20 fighters. Crew-served weapons. Machine gun positions at 4 points. Outer ring, 20 fighters. Perimeter security. Roving patrols. 52 total. Plus the Wolf himself. Somewhere. Probably in the command tent near the east exit. Linda studied the terrain. Calculated fields of fire. Identified dead zones. Her mind worked like it hadn't in 3 years. Cold. Analytical. Turning human beings into geometry problems. She hated how easy it was to slip back into that headspace, but she needed it now. The question wasn't could she take 52 fighters. The question was could she do it in a way that left 4 SEALs breathing. Direct assault. Suicide. She'd get maybe 10 kills before they zeroed her position and put 300 rounds through whatever cover she'd found. Stealth extraction impossible. Too many guards. Too much open ground. She'd never get the SEALs out before someone noticed. Which left option 3. The one she'd run 37 times before. The one that had never failed because it relied on the oldest truth in warfare. Cut off the head, and the body dies. Kill the leadership. Kill the communications. Kill the cohesion. Then become a ghost in the chaos. Linda zoomed in on the command tent, studied the guard positions, counted the approaches. 2 guards outside, probably 4 inside. The Wolf, his lieutenants, radio operator, 800 meters from her current position. Uphill. Exposed approach for the last 200 meters. She'd need to be fast, and she'd need to be perfect. Linda checked her rifle, chambered a round. The sound was soft, familiar, like an old song she'd forgotten she knew. Then she started moving. The approach took 40 minutes. Not because of distance, because of patience. Linda moved like water, flowing around hard cover, freezing when the roving patrols passed. Breathing shallow, heart rate controlled, 60 beats per minute. The night was cold, her body was warm from the run, sweat cooling on her skin, but she didn't shiver, didn't shake. Her hands were steady as stone. At 600 meters, she found her position. A rocky shelf with clean line of sight to the command tent and 3 of the 4 machine gun positions. She set up. Bipod down, scope zeroed, range card memorized. Then she waited. Not for courage. She had that. She waited for doubt to show up so she could kill it before it killed her. It came right on schedule. What are you doing, Linda? You walked away from this. You chose peace. You chose to stop being the woman who solves problems with bullets. Linda's finger rested on the trigger guard. Not on the trigger. Not yet. You think this makes you a hero? Killing 52 men. Her breath stayed even. You think Morrison and Ramirez and Martinez and Chen want this, want you to murder people to save them. Linda closed her eyes. Just for a second. Then she thought about Ramirez's crayon drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands. She thought about Morrison's sister in Oregon. 2 kids he'd never meet if he died tonight. She thought about Martinez asking if he was pretending to be normal. She thought about Chen saying she made the best small talk in the whole desert. And she thought about the 12 people in that cafe in Aleppo. The ones she'd refused to kill. That was the line. Right there. She wouldn't kill innocent people to get a target, but she would kill guilty people to save innocent ones. These 52 men had traveled to this valley to execute 4 Americans on camera, to make a propaganda video, to use human beings as props in their war. They'd made their choice. Now Linda was making hers. She opened her eyes, put her finger on the trigger, and started the math that would save 4 lives by ending others. The command tent was lit from inside, shadows moving, voices carrying on the night air. Linda counted them through her scope. 6 figures visible, plus 2 outside. 8 targets, 8 rounds. She'd done worse. Her crosshairs settled on the guard outside the tent's entrance, young, maybe 20, rifle slung casual, smoking a cigarette. Linda didn't think about his mother, didn't think about whether he had a family, didn't think about anything except the triangle formed by his head, his chest, and the amount of drop her bullet would have at 800 meters. She exhaled half a breath. Squeezed. The suppressor coughed. Soft. Almost polite. The guard dropped, cigarette still burning in the sand. The second guard turned, mouth opening to shout. Linda's rifle tracked, fired. He fell before the sound left his throat. 4 seconds elapsed. Linda shifted aim. The tent flap was open. She could see inside now. 3 men around a radio, one pointing at a map, 2 lieutenants. The radio operator, her scope found the operator first, the most important target. Kill the comms and they're deaf. Squeeze. The operator slumped forward, blood on the radio. The lieutenants spun, reaching for weapons. Linda fired twice. Both dropped. 6 down. The tent flap moved. A man stepped out. Older. Beard shot with gray. Eyes scanning the darkness. The wolf. Linda's crosshairs found his chest. She hesitated. Not because she didn't want to kill him, because she wanted to make sure it counted. The wolf was still scanning. He didn't know where the shots came from. Didn't know his radio operator was dead. Didn't know his execution was scheduled for right now. Linda exhaled. Fired. The wolf staggered. Clutched his chest. Looked down at the blood spreading across his shirt. Then he fell. 7 down, 1 left inside the tent. Linda waited. 5 seconds. 10. A figure appeared in the entrance. Younger man, lieutenant or bodyguard. He saw the wolf on the ground. Saw the guards dead, started to run. Linda tracked him for 3 steps. Fired. He went down hard. 8 kills, 90 seconds. The command structure was gone. Now came the chaos. Shouts erupted across the valley. Men running. Voices raised. The outer perimeter guards rushing toward the command tent. Linda shifted position. Moved 15 meters to a new spot. Changed her angle. The machine gun position nearest the command tent was 50 meters away. 4 fighters. Scrambling now, trying to understand what just happened. Linda's scope found the gunner first, the one behind the weapon. Fired. He dropped. The assistant gunner grabbed the weapon, tried to swing it toward the ridgeline. Linda fired again. He fell across the gun. The other 2 fighters dove for cover. Smart. Too late. Linda put rounds through both positions. Quick, efficient. No wasted ammunition. 12 down. The valley was pandemonium now. Fighters running everywhere. Some toward the command tent. Some toward the machine gun positions. Some just running. No leadership. No orders. Just panic. This was where it got dangerous. Panicked men with guns were unpredictable. They fired at shadows, at sounds, at each other. Linda needed to control the chaos, direct it away from the SEALs. She shifted aim to the second machine gun position, northeast corner, 300 meters from the prisoners, fired 4 rounds, fast. 3 fighters dropped. The 4th scrambled away, 16 down. Then Linda did something that would either save everyone or kill them all. She pulled a handheld jammer from her pack. Military grade. Powerful enough to kill every radio frequency within 2 clicks. She turned it on. The effect was instant. Every fighter with a radio suddenly went silent. No commands, no coordination, no way to organize a response. They were 52 individuals now. Not a unit. And individuals were easy to break. Linda slung her rifle, drew her sidearm, started moving down the ridgeline toward the valley floor. She was done being a sniper. Now she needed to be a ghost. The first fighter never saw her. He was running toward the machine gun position, rifle raised, eyes forward. Linda came from his blind side, 3 rounds, center mass. He dropped. She kept moving. 2 more fighters ahead, crouched behind rocks, trying to figure out where the shots were coming from. Linda circled wide, came up behind them. 4 rounds. 2 bodies. 20 down. She was inside the perimeter now, in the valley, among them. This was the most dangerous part. Close quarters. Limited sight lines. Every shadow could hide an enemy, but it also meant they couldn't see her any better than she could see them. And Linda had spent 3 years being invisible. She moved through the darkness like smoke, silent, fast, lethal. A fighter appeared around a boulder. Linda fired first. He went down. Another one to her left. She spun. Fired twice. He fell. 22 down. Her magazine ran dry. She dropped it. Reloaded without breaking stride. Muscle memory. Ahead, she could see the inner ring now. The 12 fighters surrounding the SEALs. They were shouting. Weapons raised. Looking everywhere. Some wanted to execute the prisoners now. Others wanted to retreat. Nobody knew what to do without orders. Linda dropped behind cover. 50 meters out. She could make the shot from here. Pick them off one by one. But that would take time. And time meant risk. Risk that one of them would panic and put a bullet in Morrison, or Ramirez, or Martinez, or Chen. She needed them to break, to run. Linda reached into her pack, pulled out 3 smoke grenades, military grade. Thick white clouds that would turn the valley into a soup bowl. She pulled the pins, threw them high and far. They landed in the center of the inner ring. White smoke erupted. The fighters screamed. Thought it was gas. Thought it was an airstrike. They scattered. Linda moved. She burst through the smoke. Weapon up. Moving toward the SEALs. Shapes in the fog. She fired at anything that moved and wasn't bound. 3 down. 4. 5. Then she was there. 4 figures on the ground. Hands zip-tied. Eyes wide. Morrison saw her first. "Who the hell?" Linda cut his restraints. Moved to Ramirez. "Can you move? Who are you?" Ramirez's voice was hoarse. "The hairdresser." She cut Martinez free. Then Chen. All 4 SEALs stared at her. "Ma'am," Chen's voice was almost a whisper. "We're leaving. Now!" Linda handed Morrison her sidearm. Ramirez her knife. "Can you fight?" Morrison checked the weapon. Looked at her. Really looked at her. "Shadow," he whispered. Linda's eyes met his. "That was another life, Lieutenant. Right now I'm just trying to get you home." "How many?" Ramirez started. "Don't ask questions you don't want answered." Linda pulled her rifle back up. "Stay tight. Follow me. We're moving east." The smoke was clearing, shapes moving through it, fighters regrouping, realizing their prisoners were free. Shouts, gunfire, rounds cracking through the air. Linda returned fire. 2 more fighters dropped. "Move!" she barked. The SEALs moved. Linda covered them, walking backward, firing controlled bursts. A fighter appeared through the smoke. She dropped him. Another. Down. Martinez stumbled. Ramirez caught him. "Keep moving." Linda's voice cut through the chaos. Chen took point. Morrison on his 6. Ramirez helping Martinez. Linda brought up rear. Firing. Reloading. Firing. They reached the edge of the valley. Started climbing. Behind them, the fighters were organizing. 30 of them left. Maybe more. Angry now. Hunting. Linda threw her last smoke grenade. Bought them 10 seconds. They climbed hard. Rocks cutting hands. Lungs burning. A round sparked off stone near Linda's head. She spun. Fired back. Saw a muzzle flash. Put 3 rounds through it. "Faster!" she shouted. They crested the ridge. On the other side, nothing but open desert. And 40 kilometers back to base. Morrison turned. looked at the valley behind them. "They're going to chase us." "I know," Linda said. "We can't outrun them, not 40 clicks." "I know. So what's the plan?" Linda checked her ammunition. 3 magazines left, maybe 90 rounds. She looked at Morrison, at Ramirez, at Martinez and Chen. 4 good men, alive, breathing, free. "The plan is you 4 run. I'll buy you time." "Like hell," Morrison said. "That's an order, Lieutenant." "You're not my commanding officer, ma'am. With respect." Linda almost smiled. "No, I'm the hairdresser who just killed 30 people to get you out of that valley, and I'm telling you to run." Ramirez stepped forward. "We don't leave people behind." "You're not leaving me. I'm staying." "To do what, Di?" "If that's what it takes." The 4 SEALs stared at her. Martinez spoke quietly. "You asked me today if I felt like I was pretending to be normal. You said surviving means adapting, finding a way to keep going." He paused. "So adapt. Keep going. With us." Linda looked at him. This kid, this medic who held dying men and asked philosophical questions in a barber shop. "Doc?" "We run together," Chen interrupted. "Or we fight together. Your call, but we're not letting you trade your life for ours, not after you just gave us ours back." Linda wanted to argue, wanted to tell them this was the smart play, the logical play, but looking at their faces, these 4 men she'd cut hair for and made small talk with and watched prepare for a mission they almost didn't come back from, she realized something. They'd already decided, and she was tired of fighting alone. "Okay," she said quietly. "We run together." Morrison smiled. "Good call." They turned east. Behind them, voices shouted. Flashlights swept the darkness. 30 fighters. Maybe more. Coming fast. Linda and the 4 SEALs started running. The desert stretched ahead, 40 kilometers. 3 hours until dawn. And somewhere behind them, angry men with guns were hunting. But Linda Walker's shadow wasn't alone anymore. She was running with ghosts. SEALs who'd survived the impossible. And together, they were going to make it home. Or die trying. But right now, with Morrison on her left, and Ramirez on her right, and Martinez and Chen behind them, running through the desert night with empty hands and borrowed weapons, and nothing but will keeping them upright. Linda felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Purpose. Not the kind that came from orders or missions or files marked classified. The kind that came from choosing to run toward danger instead of away from it. From choosing to save instead of kill. From choosing these 4 lives over her own safety. They ran. The desert swallowed them. And behind them, the hunters came. But ahead, somewhere in the darkness, F.O.B. Phoenix waited. Home. Safety. Life. They just had to survive long enough to reach it. Linda's lungs burned. Her legs screamed. Her body had already run 40 kilometers tonight, and now it was being asked to do it again. But her heart was steady. 60 beats per minute. Combat calm. Because this time she wasn't running alone. This time she was running with brothers. And that made all the difference. The mountains fell away behind them. The desert stretched ahead. 40 kilometers to go. 3 hours until dawn. And a whole new kind of war beginning in the darkness behind them. But Linda Walker was done being a hairdresser. Tonight, Shadow had returned, and she was taking her boys home. They ran for 20 minutes before Morrison collapsed. Not fell. Collapsed. His legs just stopped working, and he went down hard. Linda was beside him instantly. "Where were hip?" Morrison's face was gray. "Old injury. It's done." Ramirez dropped to his other side. "We carry him." 40 kilometers. Chen was breathing hard. "We'll never make it." "Then we don't make it." Ramirez's voice was flat. "But we don't leave him." Linda checked Morrison's hip. Even through his pants, she could feel the heat. Inflammation. Old shrapnel, maybe. Something that had been compensating for weeks and finally gave out. Behind them, flashlights bobbed in the darkness. Voices carried. The hunters were maybe 15 minutes back, moving fast. "How many rounds you got?" Linda asked Chen. "None. They took everything." She looked at Ramirez. "You..." He held up her knife. "Just this." Martinez had nothing. Morrison had her sidearm but could barely stand. 90 rounds between her rifle and Morrison's borrowed pistol, against 30 fighters. Maybe more. The math was bad. Linda stood, scanned the terrain. They were in open desert now. No cover, no high ground, nothing but sand and scrub brush and the distant promise of FOB Phoenix 30 kilometers away. She could see the flashlights clearer now. Definitely closing. "Okay." Linda's voice was calm. "New plan. You four keep moving. Stay low. Stay quiet. I'll lead them away." "We already had this conversation," Morrison said through clenched teeth. "You lost." "That was before you couldn't walk." "I can walk." Morrison tried to stand, made it halfway before his leg buckled. "I can walk." "Sure you can." Linda helped him down. "But not 40 clicks, not tonight." Martinez moved closer, his medic instincts overriding everything else. "Let me see it." "No time, Doc. Make time." Martinez was already probing Morrison's hip. His fingers found something. Morrison hissed. "It's bad. Might be a stress fracture. Might be the old shrapnel shifted. Either way, he needs a hospital, not a 40-kilometer death march." The flashlights were closer. 10 minutes. Maybe less. Linda did the math again. Came up with the same answer. "Chen, you're fastest. You run ahead. Get to base. Bring back extraction." "That's 6 hours minimum," Chen said. "Round trip? You won't last 6 hours." "We'll last as long as we need to." "Ma'am, that's not a debate, petty officer. That's an order from someone who outranks you even if you don't know it yet." Linda's eyes were hard. "You run. You get help. We'll hold here." Chen looked at Morrison, at Ramirez, at Martinez. "Go," Morrison said quietly. "She's right." Chen's jaw worked. Then he nodded. Turned. Started running. Linda watched him disappear into the darkness. Watched the fastest chance they had sprint away toward safety. Then she turned back to the 3 men remaining. "Okay, let's talk about how we're going to survive the next 6 hours." Ramirez laughed. Actually laughed. "With 90 rounds and a knife against 30-plus hostiles, I've worked with less. When Mosul, 2019, 12 rounds, 4 tangos, made it out." "How?" Linda checked her rifle. "Made them think there were more of us, fired from different positions. They panicked, ran." "That's the plan, make them panic." "That's always the plan, Chief." Linda smiled. Cold. Hard. "People with guns are just people. They get scared. They make mistakes. We exploit that." Martinez was still working on Morrison's hip. "I can splint it. Won't fix it, but might get him mobile." "Do it." Linda moved to the top of a small rise. 10 meters of elevation. Not much, but better than nothing. "Ramirez, find anything we can use for cover. Rocks, dead brush, anything." Ramirez moved, started dragging rocks into a rough semicircle. Linda lay prone at the top of the rise, rifle zeroed, eyes on the darkness. The flashlights were maybe 7 minutes out now. She could hear voices. Angry. Determined. They wanted blood. Wanted revenge for their commander, for the 30 men Shadow had killed in that valley. Linda understood. If someone had done to her people what she'd just done, she'd be hunting too. But understanding didn't mean mercy. It meant she knew exactly how angry they were, how reckless that anger would make them. And reckless men made mistakes. Behind her, Martinez worked on Morrison's hip. Linda could hear Morrison's breathing. Controlled. Painful. The breathing of a man who'd been hurt before and knew how to manage it. "Talk to me, Doc," Linda said, without taking her eyes off the horizon. "It's bad, real bad. He shouldn't be walking at all." "Can you make him combat effective?" Pause. Define combat effective. "Can he hold a weapon and put rounds down range if needed?" Another pause. "Yeah, he can do that." "Then that's all we need." Linda's finger rested on the trigger guard. "Ramirez status. Got a horseshoe of rocks, maybe 2 feet high. Won't stop bullets, but it'll hide us." "Good enough." Linda glanced back. The rock formation was crude but functional. 3 positions. Overlapping fields of fire. "Get Morrison in the center. You and Doc on the flanks." They moved Morrison into position. He grunted but didn't cry out. Linda stayed on the rise, 10 meters forward of their defensive position. Exposed. Bait. "Ma'am," Ramirez called quietly. "You're awfully exposed up there." "That's the idea, Chief. They'll zero you first." "Probably." "That's a terrible plan." Linda smiled. "Got a better one?" Ramirez was quiet. The flashlights were 5 minutes out. Linda could see shapes now. 30 fighters. Maybe 35. Moving in a loose formation. No discipline, just anger and rifles. She counted them. Memorized their spacing. Identified the leaders by body language. 3 men at the front. 1 giving orders. Kill the talkers. The rest would freeze. 4 minutes. Linda's heart rate was steady. 60 beats. She'd run 80 kilometers tonight. Killed 30 men. Cut 4 prisoners loose. And now she was lying in sand with 90 rounds and a bad plan. But her hands weren't shaking. 3 minutes. Behind her, Martinez whispered something to Morrison. Morrison whispered back, a joke, maybe, or a prayer. Linda couldn't tell. Ramirez was silent, probably running his own math, figuring his own odds. They were all thinking the same thing. This was a last stand. Chen might make it back with help. Might not. 6 hours was a long time. A lot could happen in 6 hours. They might hold this position. Might not. 90 rounds against 35 fighters was possible, but not probable. They might survive the night, might not. But lying here in the sand, listening to 3 Navy SEALs breathe behind her, Linda realized something. She wasn't afraid. 3 years ago, she'd walked away from this life because she was tired of killing, tired of the weight, tired of being the woman who solved problems with bullets. But tonight wasn't about killing for policy or orders or classified objectives. Tonight was about Morrison's sister in Oregon and her 2 kids he'd never met. About Ramirez's Sunday mornings and pancakes and nobody dying. About Martinez asking if he was pretending to be normal. About Chen running through the desert right now, carrying their only hope back to base. Tonight was about choosing life over death, even if it meant using death to protect life. That was the line. Right there. The one she'd been looking for in Aleppo when she'd said no. The one she'd found tonight when she'd said yes. 2 minutes. The fighters were close enough now that Linda could see faces. Young men. Old men. Beards and rifles and fury in their eyes. They thought they were hunting. They didn't know they were about to become the hunted. Linda's finger moved to the trigger. "On my shot," she said quietly. "Make every round count. We've got 90 bullets in 6 hours. Do the math and stay calm." "Yes, ma'am," 3 voices answered. Linda's crosshairs found the leader, the one giving orders. She exhaled half a breath. "Here we go," she whispered, and squeezed. The leader dropped. The fighters froze, exactly like Linda knew they would. For 3 seconds, 34 men stood in the open, trying to understand where the shot came from. Linda used those 3 seconds. She fired again. Another leader dropped, again. 3rd man down. The fighters scattered, diving for cover, shouting, firing blind into the darkness. Linda rolled left, changed position, fired from a new angle. 2 more fighters fell. Behind her, Morrison fired. The pistol cracked. A fighter spun and dropped. Ramirez was shouting something. Coordinates, maybe. Directions. Martinez stayed quiet, probably conserving his voice for when he'd need to patch someone up. The fighters were returning fire now. Rounds kicking up sand. Sparking off rocks. None of them close. They couldn't see Linda's position. Couldn't see the defensive ring behind her. They were shooting at muzzle flashes and guessing. Linda fired again. Again. Methodical. Calm. 8 down total. 82 rounds remaining. The fighters pulled back, regrouping, 200 meters out. Linda slid back to the defensive position. "Ammo check." 82, Morrison said. "They're going to flank us," Ramirez said. "Come from multiple sides." "I know." Linda reloaded. "That's when we move. Fall back 50 meters, new position. Make them think we're a bigger force." "How? Leave gear behind. Make them cautious. Caution buys time." Martinez looked at her. "You've done this before. Once or twice? Did you survive?" Linda smiled. "Still here, aren't I?" The fighters were moving, splitting into 2 groups, flanking left and right. "Here they come," Morrison said. Linda counted. 15 left, 15 right. 4 stayed in the center. "Ramirez, you take the left flank when they push. Morrison center. I've got right. Doc, you're on triage." "I don't have any medical supplies," Martinez said. "Then improvise. Use sand. Use pressure. Use whatever you've got." Linda's eyes never left the advancing fighters. "You're a SEAL medic, Doc. You've kept people alive with worse." Martinez nodded. The fighters advanced. Cautious now. Weapons up. Moving in pairs. Linda let them come. 60 meters. 50. 40. At 30 meters, she fired. The lead fighter on the right flank dropped. His partner dove for cover. Morrison fired at center. Another fighter down. Ramirez was shouting again. Coordinates, trying to sound like he was calling in air support, even though they all knew no air support was coming. But the fighters didn't know that. They hesitated, looked at each other, wondering if jets were inbound. Linda used the hesitation, fired 3 more rounds. 2 hits. The fighters pulled back again. "Now," Linda said. "Move." They grabbed Morrison, Ramirez and Martinez on his shoulders, Linda covering rear. They fell back 50 meters, found a new position. Lower. Worse sight lines, but different. Linda left her pack behind, made it look like a fighting position they'd abandoned. The fighters would find it, would think they were running, would push harder, which is exactly what Linda wanted. They settled into the new position, Morrison grimacing as they lowered him down. "How you holding up, Lieutenant?" Linda asked. "Been better. Been worse." Morrison checked his pistol. "I'm good for another 10 rounds before I'm dry." Linda did the math. 70 rounds in her rifle, 10 in Morrison's pistol. Nothing else. 26 fighters remaining. Maybe more. Still bad math. But better than it was 10 minutes ago. The fighters found the abandoned position. She could hear voices. Excited. Thinking they'd broken the defense. They pushed forward, faster now, less cautious. Linda smiled. "Stupid," she whispered. When they reached the kill zone, she opened fire. 3 down before they realized the position was occupied. Morrison fired. 2 more. Ramirez was throwing rocks now, making noise from different directions, creating phantom contacts. The fighters panicked, started firing everywhere, at shadows, at sounds, at each other. Linda kept shooting, controlled, precise. When her magazine ran dry, she reloaded. 40 rounds left, 18 fighters remaining. The sun would rise in 90 minutes. Chen had been running for 45 minutes. Still 5 hours from bringing back help. Linda checked Morrison. His face was pale. Pain. Blood loss, maybe. The splint was holding, but barely. Martinez saw her looking, shook his head slightly. Morrison wouldn't last 6 hours, maybe not even 3. Linda turned back to the darkness. The fighters had pulled back again. Learning. Adapting. They'd try something different next time. "How many rounds?" Ramirez asked. 40. That's less than 3 rounds per hostile. I know. We're going to run dry. I know that too, Chief. Silence. Then Morrison spoke. His voice was quiet. Strained. "Tell me something." "What's that, Lieutenant? Why'd you come?" "Really? You walked away from this life. You could have stayed in your quarters. Cut hair tomorrow like nothing happened. Why'd you come?" Linda was quiet for a long moment, watching the darkness, watching for the next attack. "You remember what you said in my chair today, about your sister's kids?" "Yeah." "You said you'd never met them. That killed me. The idea that you might die without ever meeting them. That they'd grow up knowing their uncle died in some desert and never got to make them laugh or teach them something or just be there." Linda's voice was steady. "I walked away 3 years ago because I was tired of making choices that hurt people, but tonight I realized not choosing is a choice too. And letting you 4 die when I might be able to stop it, that would hurt more than anything I did in 20 years of operations." Ramirez spoke up. "What happened in Aleppo?" Linda glanced back. "How'd you know about that?" "Didn't. But you said you walked away 3 years ago. And you said it was about choices that hurt people. Figured something broke you. Figured it had a name." "Cafe. 12 civilians. 1 high-value target. I was ordered to take the shot. Kill everyone to get the one. And you didn't." "No. That's why you left. That's why they made me leave." Morrison was quiet. Then he said, "I would have taken the shot." "I know. Does that make me wrong?" Linda thought about that. "I don't know. I just know I couldn't do it. I couldn't look through that scope at 12 people drinking tea and decide their lives were worth less than the mission." She paused. "Maybe that makes me weak. Maybe that's why I'm cutting hair instead of running ops. But tonight, lying here with 40 rounds and 3 hours until you bleed out, Lieutenant, I'm glad I'm the person who couldn't pull that trigger, because it means I'm also the person who could run 80 kilometers to pull you out of that valley." Silence. Then Ramirez said quietly, "For what it's worth, ma'am, I'm glad you're that person too." "Amen to that," Martinez added. Morrison tried to laugh. It came out as a cough. "Best haircut I ever had." Linda smiled. Then the fighters attacked again. This time they were smart. They came from 3 sides simultaneously. Coordinated, no more rushing blindly. Linda fired, dropped one, 2. Morrison fired. His rounds went wide, pain throwing off his aim. Ramirez had the knife, useless at this range. Martinez stayed low, trying to keep Morrison conscious. The fighters closed to 20 meters, 15. Linda fired until her magazine clicked empty. Reloaded her last magazine. 20 rounds remaining. 12 fighters still coming. 10 meters. Linda switched to her sidearm, fired point blank at the nearest fighter. He dropped. Another appeared. She fired. Missed. Fired again. He fell. 5 meters. Ramirez lunged with the knife, caught a fighter in the throat. Morrison fired his last round. A fighter spun away. Martinez grabbed a rock, threw it, hit someone in the face. Linda fired. 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 Her pistol clicked empty. A fighter raised his rifle. Linda didn't have time to reload. This was it. She looked at Morrison, at Ramirez, at Martinez. "It was an honor," she said. The fighter's finger tightened on the trigger. Then his head exploded. The sound came a half-second later, the crack of a rifle. High-powered. American. Another fighter dropped. Then another. Linda spun. Looked east. 300 meters out, muzzle flashes in the darkness. Then voices. American voices. Speaking English. "Friendlies, friendlies, hold fire." Ramirez started laughing. Actually laughing. "That beautiful bastard Chen." Linda didn't move. Couldn't move. She just stood there in the sand, holding an empty pistol, while a squad of rangers poured into the kill zone and finished what she'd started. The fight lasted 90 seconds. When it was done, 8 fighters were dead, 4 surrendered. The rest ran. A ranger captain approached. Young, maybe 30. He looked at Linda, at the 3 SEALs behind her, at the bodies scattered across 200 meters of desert. "Ma'am, are you Shadow?" Linda's hands were shaking now, adrenaline crash. "I used to be." "Chen said you held 35 hostiles for 90 minutes with 90 rounds. 80 rounds, and it was more like 60 minutes. The captain looked at the bodies again, looked at Linda. "How many did you—" "Don't ask questions you don't want," answered Captain. He nodded slowly, then he keyed his radio. "Base, this is Rescue 6. Package secure. 4 SEALs recovered. 1 additional friendly. Request immediate medevac for wounded." Linda sat down, just dropped into the sand. Her legs stopped working. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Martinez was beside her instantly. "You hit?" "No, just done." "Yeah," Martinez smiled. "Me too." Ramirez came over, sat down next to her, didn't say anything, just sat there. Morrison was being loaded onto a stretcher. He raised one hand, gave her a thumbs up. Linda returned it. Then she lay back in the sand and stared at the sky. Dawn was breaking. Pink and orange and beautiful. Somewhere behind her, a Chinook was inbound, coming to take them home. Linda closed her eyes. She'd run 80 kilometers, killed 43 people, saved 4 lives, and tomorrow she'd probably go back to cutting hair. But tonight, right now, lying in the sand with 3 Navy SEALs and a squad of Rangers and the sunrise painting the sky, Linda Walker felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Peace. Not because the fighting was over, because she'd finally figured out what the line was, and she'd stayed on the right side of it. The Chinook's rotors beat the air into submission. Linda sat in the webbing, eyes closed, letting the vibration rattle through her bones. Next to her, Martinez was checking Morrison's vitals. Across from her, Ramirez stared at nothing. Chen sat by the door gunner. He hadn't stopped looking at her since they'd loaded up. Nobody spoke. The rotor noise made conversation impossible anyway, but Linda knew silence when she saw it. This wasn't can't talk silence. This was don't know what to say silence. The ranger captain had tried asking questions. Linda had shut him down. Chen had backed her up. The captain had made a call. Someone higher up had made another call. And suddenly nobody was asking Linda Walker anything anymore, which meant someone had opened a file, found a name that didn't officially exist, made a decision about what happened next. Linda's hands had stopped shaking. That was good. She'd need steady hands for whatever came after the bird touched down. Morrison's eyes opened, found hers. He mouthed something. Linda couldn't hear over the rotors. Leaned closer. "Thank you," Morrison said again. Loud enough this time. Linda shook her head. "You don't thank someone for doing their job. You don't have a job anymore? You cut hair? Then you don't thank your hairdresser for saving your life. It's weird." Morrison almost smiled. Then his eyes closed again. Pain or exhaustion or both. Martinez caught Linda's eye, shook his head slightly. Morrison needed surgery. Real surgery, not field medicine, the kind with anesthesia and specialists and a recovery room. The Chinook banked. FOB Phoenix appeared through the door. Lights, movement, people waiting. Too many people. Linda's stomach dropped. This wasn't a quiet extraction. This was a reception committee. The bird touched down. Dust everywhere. The ramp dropped. Medical personnel rushed in, grabbed Morrison, had him on a gurney before Linda could blink. "The rest of you, let's go! Move! Move! Move!" Linda stood. Her legs protested. Every muscle in her body was screaming. But she walked down the ramp because sitting down wasn't an option. Colonel Davidson was waiting. Full uniform. Stone face. Behind him, a man Linda didn't recognize. Civilian clothes. Expensive watch. The kind of expensive that said government contractor or intelligence officer or both. "Walker," Davidson said. "With me." "Sir, I should—" That wasn't a request. Linda looked back at Chen Ramirez Martinez. Chen gave her a small nod. "We've got this." She followed Davidson. The civilian fell into step beside them. Didn't introduce himself. Didn't need to. They walked across the compound, away from the medical tents, away from the operations center, toward the command building. Inside, the civilian gestured to a chair. Linda didn't sit. "Sit down, Captain Walker," the civilian said. So he knew. Of course he knew. Linda sat. Davidson stood by the door, arms crossed, face unreadable. The civilian pulled out a tablet, tapped a few times, turned it toward Linda. The screen showed her service record. The real one. The one that was supposed to be buried under so many classification layers that it took presidential authorization to access. "Special Activities Division," the civilian said. 60 confirmed missions, 0 casualties, exemplary record until 3 years ago when you refused a direct order in Aleppo. He paused. "Want to tell me what you were thinking tonight?" Linda looked at him. Really looked at him. "I was thinking 4 men were going to die if someone didn't do something about it." "And you decided that someone was you?" "Yes." "Despite the fact that you walked away from this life, despite the agreement you made with the agency, despite explicit instructions to maintain your cover and never under any circumstances engage in operational activity." Linda's jaw tightened. "Those men were my responsibility." "How you cut their hair, that doesn't make them your responsibility." "I knew they were walking into a trap." The civilian leaned forward. "Did you have intelligence we didn't have?" "No." "Then how did you know?" "I read them, their body language, their stress levels, the way they talked. I knew something was wrong." "You read them?" "Yes." And based on reading them, you decided to violate your agreement, arm yourself with classified weapons that you weren't supposed to have, infiltrate hostile territory alone, engage 50+ enemy combatants, and extract 4 Navy SEALs. Linda met his eyes. Yes. The civilian sat back, looked at Davidson. Your thoughts, Colonel? Davidson's face was still stone. 43 confirmed kills, 4 Americans alive, 0 friendly casualties. From a tactical standpoint, it was a successful operation. That's not what I asked. Davidson was quiet for a moment. Then he said, she violated about 30 regulations, broke her agreement, operated without authorization, used classified equipment, engaged in combat operations on foreign soil without oversight. He paused. And she saved 4 of my men when I'd already written them off as dead. The civilian nodded slowly. That's the problem, isn't it? She's a ghost who's supposed to stay dead. But ghosts don't save people. Ghosts don't run 80 kilometers. Ghosts don't hold off 35 hostiles with 90 rounds. He looked at Linda. You were supposed to disappear, Captain. That was the deal. You couldn't follow orders, so we made you invisible. And tonight, you made yourself very, very visible. So court-martial me. We can't court-martial you. You don't exist. Your file is classified at a level that requires congressional notification to access. We can't even acknowledge you were in that valley tonight. Then what do you want? The civilian was quiet. Then he said, I want to know if you're back. Linda blinked. What? Are you back? Is Shadow operational again? Or was tonight a one-time thing? I don't understand the question. The question is simple, Captain. You walked away 3 years ago because you couldn't follow orders that violated your conscience. Fine. I respect that. But tonight you proved you're still the most effective operator we've had in 20 years. Your rusty 80 kilometers damn near killed you when you used to run that before breakfast, but the skills are still there. The instinct is still there. He leaned forward. So I'm asking, are you back? Linda stared at him. Her mind was racing. Body was shutting down. She'd been awake for 36 hours, run 80 kilometers, killed 43 people, saved 4 lives. And now this man was asking if she wanted to do it again. No, she said quietly. The civilian's eyebrows raised. No. No, I'm not back. Tonight was different. Tonight was personal. Those men were my responsibility because I watched them prepare for that mission. I saw them. I knew them. They weren't targets or assets or operational necessities. They were Morrison and Ramirez and Martinez and Chen, and I couldn't let them die when I might be able to stop it. That's called operational attachment, Captain. It's exactly why we have rules against, I don't care what you call it. Linda's voice was steady, tired but steady. I walked away 3 years ago because I was tired of killing strangers to protect policies I didn't understand. Tonight I killed enemies to protect friends. That's the difference. That's the line. She paused. So no, I'm not back. Shadow isn't operational. I'm still Linda Walker. I still cut hair. And tomorrow I'll still be cutting hair. The civilian studied her. What if I told you that's not an option? Then I'd tell you to do whatever you're going to do. Court-martial me in secret. Make me disappear for real. I don't care anymore. I'm done. Davidson spoke up. She just saved 4 SEALs. You really want to punish her for that? I'm not talking about punishment, Colonel. I'm talking about reality. She broke her agreement. She compromised her cover. Every person on this base now knows Linda Walker is more than a hairdresser. That cat's out of the bag. We can't put it back. Linda stood. Her legs almost gave out. She caught herself on the desk. Then reassign me. Send me to another base. Another cover. I don't care. But I'm not going back to operations. I'm not going back to being Shadow. I'm done with that life. The civilian looked at Davidson. Davidson looked at Linda. Then Davidson said something Linda wasn't expecting. Maybe she's right. The civilian turned. Excuse me. Maybe she's right. Maybe we've been looking at this wrong. Davidson walked closer. Captain Walker violated her agreement tonight. No question. But she also demonstrated something we haven't seen in 20 years of operations. She showed judgment. Real judgment. She didn't follow orders because orders aren't always right. She didn't complete the mission because the mission isn't always worth the cost. She made a choice, a human choice to save lives instead of take them. And it worked. The civilian was quiet. Davidson continued. We spend billions training operators to follow orders, to complete missions, to do the job regardless of cost. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe what we need are operators who can think, who can choose, who can look at a mission and say, no, there's a better way. He looked at Linda. Maybe what we need is exactly what she did tonight. The civilian stood, walked to the window, stared out at the base. 30 seconds of silence. Then he said, I need to make a call. He left. Linda and Davidson were alone. Linda sat back down, put her head in her hands. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. I just made an argument that'll probably end my career. Davidson sat across from her. You know what you did tonight was insane. Yes, sir. You know you should be dead. Yes, sir. You know those 4 men should be dead too. Linda looked up. But they're not. No, they're not. And that's because you did something that should have been impossible. Davidson was quiet for a moment. Chen told me what happened in that desert. Said you held 35 hostiles with 90 rounds for 90 minutes. Said you moved positions 5 times. Made them think there was a platoon out there. Psychologically broke them before you ran out of ammunition. He paused. That true, more or less? How? Linda thought about that. I made them scared. Scared people make mistakes. Mistakes create opportunities. Opportunities save lives. That's not standard doctrine. No, sir, it's not. Where'd you learn it? Mosul, Baghdad, Aleppo. 60 missions where standard doctrine would have gotten people killed. Linda met his eyes. I learned it from being the person who had to live with the consequences of my choices. And I learned that living with those consequences is harder than dying for them. Davidson nodded slowly. That's why you said no in Aleppo. Yes, sir. You couldn't live with 12 civilians on your conscience. No, sir, I couldn't. Even if it meant losing your career. Even then. Davidson stood, walked to the door, stopped. For what it's worth, Captain, I think you made the right choice. Both times. Aleppo and tonight. Thank you, sir. He left. Linda sat alone in the room. Through the window she could see medical personnel moving, vehicles driving, the base doing what bases do. Somewhere in the medical tent, Morrison was probably in surgery. Martinez and Ramirez were probably being debriefed. Chen was probably telling the story of how a hairdresser saved his life. And tomorrow, the story would spread. Become legend. Get exaggerated with every telling. By next week, people would say Shadow killed 100 fighters, saved 12 SEALs, did it blindfolded and backward. That's how legends worked. The truth was always smaller, more human, more real. The truth was Linda Walker ran 80 kilometers on legs that hadn't run that far in 3 years, killed 43 people she didn't want to kill, saved 4 lives she couldn't bear to lose. and almost died in the sand because she ran out of ammunition before she ran out of enemies. That was the truth. But legends were easier. Legends didn't have to think about the 43 men who died tonight. Didn't have to wonder if they had families, if they had Sunday mornings with pancakes, if they had kids who would grow up without fathers. Linda had to think about that. She always thought about that. That's why she couldn't be Shadow anymore. The door opened. The civilian came back, face unreadable. "I made the call," he said. Linda waited. "You're being reassigned. Effective immediately. New cover, new base, new identity. The agreement stands, but with modifications. You maintain your cover. You don't engage in operations. But if and only if American lives are in immediate danger and you are the only asset available, you have discretion to act." He paused. "Clear. Yes, sir." "This is a one-time exception, Captain. Tonight happened because you were in the right place at the right time with the right skills. Don't make it a habit." "I won't, sir." "Good. Your transport leaves in 3 hours. Pack your gear. Say your goodbyes. And Captain." He looked at her. "For what it's worth, good work tonight. 43 kills, 4 saves, 0 friendly casualties. That's a win in my book." He left. Linda sat there. 3 hours. Not enough time to process. Not enough time to think. Just enough time to pack and leave before the reality of what she'd done caught up with her. She stood, walked out, headed toward her quarters. Chen was waiting outside. "Ma'am?" "Chen. I wanted to say thank you. For real this time. Not just the polite thank you. The real one." He paused. "You saved my life tonight. Saved all our lives. And I know that's not your job anymore. I know you walked away from this. But you came anyway, and I need you to know that matters." Linda's throat was tight. "You would have done the same." "Maybe, but I didn't have to. You did." Chen held out his hand. "Thank you, Shadow." Linda shook it. "It's just Linda." "No, ma'am. Tonight you were Shadow, and Shadow saved my brothers." He smiled. "But tomorrow you can go back to being Linda, and I'll come get a haircut and we'll pretend this never happened." "I'm being reassigned." Chen's smile faded. "What? New base, new cover. I leave in 3 hours." "They're punishing you for saving us." "No, they're protecting me, and protecting themselves. Too many people know now. The cover's blown." Chen was quiet. Then he said, "Will we see you again?" "Probably not." "That's not fair." Linda almost laughed. "Nothing about tonight was fair, Chen. Fair would have been you guys never walking into that trap. Fair would have been intel that actually worked. Fair would have been nobody dying." She paused. "But we don't get fair. We get what we get. And we do our best with it." Chen nodded. "I'm going to tell people about you. About what you did." "Don't. Please. The fewer people who know, the safer everyone is." "Then what do I say when people ask how we got out? Tell them the truth. 4 Navy SEALs held off 35 hostiles until reinforcements arrived. You don't need to mention the hairdresser." Chen smiled sadly. "You're going to be a legend anyway, ma'am. Whether you want it or not." "Legends aren't real, Chen. I'm just someone who was in the right place at the right time." "No, ma'am. You're someone who was in the wrong place at the right time and chose to make it right." He stepped back, saluted. "Hoo-ya, Shadow." Linda returned the salute. "Hoo-ya, Chen." He left. Linda watched him go. Then she walked to her quarters. Inside, she started packing. It didn't take long. She didn't own much. Clothes, scissors, a few books. She pulled the mirror off the wall, looked at the hidden compartment. The rifle was still there. The gear, the ID case. She pulled out the case, opened it. Captain Linda Walker, Special Activities Division. She stared at the photo. The younger face, the harder eyes. Then she closed it. Put it in her pack. Maybe she'd need it again someday. Maybe she wouldn't. But either way, it was part of who she was. Not all of who she was. Not anymore. But part. She finished packing, zipped the bag, sat on her cot. 2 hours until transport. She should sleep, should eat, should do something useful. Instead, she just sat there, thinking about Morrison and his sister's kids, about Ramirez and his Sunday mornings, about Martinez and his question about pretending to be normal, about Chen and his thank you, thinking about the 43 men she'd killed tonight, about whether they had families, about whether killing them was right or just necessary, thinking about the line between those two things, about how thin it was, about how easy it was to cross. She'd stayed on the right side tonight. She was sure of that. But the line was still there. Still thin. Still easy to cross. And Linda Walker knew that as long as she lived, as long as she kept these skills, as long as she remained capable of doing what she'd done tonight, that line would always be there. Waiting. Testing. A knock on the door. Linda stood. Opened it. Martinez stood there. Ramirez behind him. "Ma'am," Martinez said. "We heard you're leaving." "Yeah. We wanted to say goodbye. And thank you. For real." Ramirez held out a small box. "We got you something." Linda took it, opened it. Inside was a trident pin. The seal insignia, engraved on the back. "Shadow from the Dream Team." Dream. Linda's eyes stung. "Guys, I can't accept this." "Yes, you can," Ramirez said quietly. "You earned it. You might not be a SEAL, but you bled with us, fought with us, saved us. That makes you one of us." "I'm not—" "You are." Martinez's voice was firm. "Morrison wanted to be here, but he's still in surgery. He told us to give you that and tell you something." "What?" "He said tell her she's not pretending anymore. She's surviving. And surviving together is what makes us human." Linda couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She just stood there holding a trident pin she didn't deserve from men she'd almost let die. "Thank you," she finally whispered. "No, ma'am," Ramirez said. "Thank you." They left. Linda closed the door, sat back down, looked at the pin. Shadow from the Dream Team. She'd spent 3 years trying to forget she was Shadow. Spent 3 years cutting hair and making small talk and pretending the woman who'd killed 60 targets in 60 missions didn't exist. But tonight proved she was still there. Still capable. Still deadly when she needed to be. The question was whether that was good or bad. Linda didn't have an answer. Maybe there wasn't one. Maybe some people were just built to run toward danger instead of away from it. Built to use violence to protect life. Built to exist in that thin space between warrior and civilian. Maybe that was okay. Linda put the pin in her pack, stood, grabbed her bag. 1 hour until transport. She walked out, locked the door behind her, walked across the compound one last time. FOB Phoenix hummed around her. Generators, voices, helicopters, normal base sounds, normal base life. But Linda Walker wasn't normal, wasn't base life. She was something else, something in between. Shadow when she needed to be. Linda when she could be. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The transport was waiting. A Black Hawk, rotors already spinning. Linda climbed in, strapped herself into the webbing. The bird lifted off. Through the door, she watched FOB Phoenix shrink below her. Watched the desert stretch out in all directions. Watched the sunrise paint everything gold and pink and new. Somewhere down there, Morrison was waking up from surgery. Ramirez was probably calling his wife. Martinez was probably writing in a journal. Chen was probably cleaning his rifle. 4 men who should be dead, who were alive because a hairdresser decided scissors weren't enough tonight. The bird banked east, toward a new base, a new cover, a new life. But Linda knew the truth. She'd never stop being Shadow completely. And she was okay with that now, because the line wasn't about never using violence. The line was about choosing when to use it, why to use it, who to use it for. Tonight she'd chosen life over death, friends over orders, conscience over policy, and she'd do it again if she had to. That was the real truth. Linda closed her eyes. Let the helicopter carry her toward whatever came next. Behind her, the sun rose over the desert. Ahead, a new day waited. And somewhere in between, a hairdresser who used to be a ghost found peace in knowing exactly who she was. The Black Hawk landed at a civilian airport 3 hours later. Not a military base. An airport. Linda grabbed her bag, stepped onto the tarmac. The civilian from FOB Phoenix was waiting next to a black SUV. "Change of plans," he said. Linda's hand went to her sidearm. Still there. "What kind of change?" "The reassignment is off. New orders came down an hour ago." He opened the SUV door. "Get in." "Where are we going?" "Classified." Linda didn't move. "I'm done with classified." "No, you're not. Not yet. Get in the vehicle, Captain." Something in his voice made Linda's instincts scream. This wasn't a reassignment. This was something else. She got in anyway, because walking away would raise more questions than staying. The SUV drove 20 minutes through streets Linda didn't recognize. Then they pulled into an underground parking garage, descended 3 levels, stopped in front of an elevator. "This way," the civilian said. They took the elevator down. No buttons, just a key card reader and a biometric scanner. The doors opened onto a hallway. White walls, fluorescent lights, the kind of anonymous government space that existed in every major city and officially didn't exist at all. They walked to a conference room. The civilian opened the door. Inside, 4 people waited. 3 Linda didn't know. 1 she did. Morrison. He was in a wheelchair, his hip wrapped in medical bandaging, his face pale but alive. "Lieutenant," Linda's voice was careful. "What's going on?" "Have a seat, Captain," one of the strangers said. Woman, 50s, expensive suit, the kind of bearing that said she'd been giving orders her entire life. Linda sat. Morrison wheeled closer. "They pulled me out of recovery," Morrison said quietly. "Told me I had a choice to make. Thought I should make it with you here." "What choice?" The woman in the suit spoke. "I'm Deputy Director Hastings, Defense Intelligence Agency. I've been reviewing your file for the past 6 hours, yours and Lieutenant Morrison's." "I don't have a file. Officially." "Officially, you don't exist. Unofficially, you have the most impressive operational record I've seen in 30 years. Hastings pulled out a tablet. 60 missions, 0 casualties, exceptional marksmanship, psychological operations expertise, language skills, strategic thinking. She paused. "And 1 insubordination that ended your career." Linda's jaw tightened. "I made my choice in Aleppo. I'd make it again." "I know you would. That's why you're here." "I don't understand." Hastings turned the tablet toward Linda. "What do you see?" The screen showed satellite footage. A compound. Guards. Vehicles. Somewhere in the Middle East, maybe. Could be anywhere. A target, Linda said. Not just a target. A problem. Hastings zoomed in. 12 American aid workers, kidnapped 3 days ago. Intel says they're being held here. Intel also says they're being moved in 48 hours. After that, they disappear into the wind and we never see them again. Linda studied the image. Counted guards, identified entry points, old habits. So, send in a team. Extract them. We can't, not officially. The compound is in a country we're not supposed to have military operations in. If we go in hard, it becomes an international incident. If it becomes an incident, those aid workers become leverage. Hastings pulled the tablet back. So we need someone who doesn't officially exist. Someone who can go in quiet. Someone who has a track record of bringing people home alive. Linda's stomach dropped. No. Captain, I said no, I'm done. I walked away. I cut hair now. That's the agreement. Morrison spoke up. They offered me the mission first. Linda turned. What? They came to me in recovery, said they needed someone for an operation, someone expendable, someone who could get disavowed if it went wrong. Morrison's voice was quiet. I told them I couldn't. My hips destroyed. I'd be a liability. But I told them I knew someone who could. You gave them my name? Yes. Why? Morrison looked at her. Really looked at her. Because 12 people are going to die if someone doesn't help them. And you're the only person I know who can help them, and has a conscience strong enough to do it right. Linda stood. This is not fair. You can't put this on me. I'm not putting anything on you, Morrison said. I'm giving you a choice. The choice you made in Aleppo. The choice you made at FOB Phoenix. The choice between following orders and doing what's right. This is different. How? Because. Linda stopped. Because what? Because it was strangers instead of friends. Because it was aid workers instead of SEALs. Because it was 12 civilians instead of 4 operators. Because it was exactly the same choice. Life or death. Action or inaction. Be Shadow or be Linda. She sat back down. Tell me about the mission. Hastings pulled up schematics. 12 aid workers, American NGO, medical personnel, teachers, engineers. They were building a water treatment facility when they were taken. Intel says the group holding them is ISIS Splinter Cell. Hardcore. Mean. They've executed 6 hostages in the past year. Guard count, 30, maybe 40. Hard to say. They rotate. Linda almost laughed. You want me to extract 12 civilians from a compound with 40 guards. We want you to try. If you say no, we have no other options. Those people die. And if I say yes, what then? I go in alone, no support, no backup. You'd have intel support, satellite, comms, extraction team on standby. But the infiltration would be solo. And if you're caught, we can't acknowledge you. You'd be on your own. Linda looked at Morrison. You knew this was what they'd ask. Yes. And you still gave them my name. Yes. Why? Morrison wheeled closer. Because 3 days ago, I watched you run 80 kilometers to save my life. I watched you kill 43 people you didn't want to kill. I watched you almost die because you ran out of ammunition before you ran out of conscience. He paused. And I realized something. You're not done, Linda. You think you are. You want to be, but you're not. Because people like us, people who can't walk away when others need help, we're never done. We just take breaks between fights. Linda's hands were shaking again. I can't keep doing this. Then don't. Say no. Walk away. Go cut hair. I'll respect that choice. But you need to know if you walk away this time, 12 people die. And you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you could have saved them. The room was quiet. Hastings spoke carefully. This isn't an order, Captain. We can't give you orders because you don't exist. This is a request from one professional to another. Help us save 12 lives. Linda stared at the satellite image, counted the guards again, mapped the approaches, calculated the odds. They were terrible. Worse than FOB Phoenix. At least there she'd had surprise. Here they'd be expecting trouble. Here she'd be walking into a fortified position against 40 alert guards with 12 non-combatants to extract. The math said it was impossible. But the math had said FOB Phoenix was impossible too. How long do I have to prep? Hastings blinked. You're saying yes. I'm saying tell me the timeline. Wheels up in 6 hours. Insertion tomorrow night. You'd have 18 hours on ground before they move the hostages. That's not enough time. It's all we have. Linda closed her eyes, thought about Sunday mornings and pancakes, thought about Morrison's sister's kids he'd never met, thought about Martinez asking if he was pretending to be normal, thought about the 12 people in that compound who were probably scared and tired and wondering if anyone was coming to help them. I need gear, full loadout, suppressed weapons, NVGs, medical kit, demo charges, comms, everything. Done. I need current satellite imagery, guard rotation schedules, floor plans if you have them, everything you've got. You'll have it in an hour. And I need one more thing. Name it. Linda looked at Morrison. I need you to promise me something. What? If I don't make it back, if this goes wrong and I end up dead or captured, you tell people the truth. You tell them Linda Walker existed, that she walked away from this life because she had a conscience, and that she came back one more time because 12 strangers needed help. She paused. You tell them she wasn't Shadow. She was just someone who couldn't walk away when people needed her. Morrison's eyes were wet. I promise. Linda stood. Okay, let's go save some lives. Hastings nodded. Thank you, Captain. Don't thank me yet. I haven't saved anyone. But you're trying. In this business, that's often enough. Linda wanted to believe that. Wanted to think that trying mattered even when the odds were impossible, and the mission was suicide, and the chances of success were microscopic. But she'd spent 3 years learning that trying wasn't always enough. That good intentions didn't stop bullets. That conscience didn't save lives. Action saved lives. Skills saved lives. Being willing to become the monster to fight monsters saved lives. And Linda Walker Shadow had those skills. That training. That willingness. She'd walked away from it 3 years ago. She'd come back to it 4 days ago. And now she was diving back in one more time. Maybe Morrison was right. Maybe she was never done. Maybe people like her didn't get to walk away. Or maybe this was the last time. Maybe after this mission she could finally put down the rifle and pick up the scissors and never look back. Maybe. But right now, 12 people were counting on her. And Linda Walker didn't walk away from people who were counting on her. That was the line. The real line. Not between violence and peace, not between Shadow and Linda, between action and inaction, between choosing to help and choosing to hide. She'd found that line tonight, finally understood it, and she was staying on the right side of it, even if it killed her. The next 6 hours passed in a blur. Gear prep, mission briefing, satellite imagery review. Linda memorized floor plans, counted guards, identified weaknesses, planned 3 different infiltration routes and 4 different extraction scenarios. Morrison stayed with her the entire time, asking questions. offering suggestions, being the professional operator he'd trained his entire life to be. "You're thinking too hard," he said at hour 4. "This is a hard mission." "Harder than FOB Phoenix." Linda paused. "Different." "How?" "Phoenix was personal. I knew you guys. I had emotional investment. This is strangers. Pure professional operation." "Is that better or worse?" "I don't know yet." Morrison wheeled closer. "Linda, look at me." She did. "You're going to go into that compound tomorrow night. You're going to kill some people. You're going to save some people. And when it's done, you're going to come home, because you're Shadow. And Shadow doesn't fail." Shadow failed in Aleppo. No. Shadow made a choice in Aleppo, a hard choice, the right choice, and then Shadow walked away because she couldn't live with the alternative. Morrison's voice was firm. "But this isn't Aleppo. This is 12 innocent people who need help. And you're not choosing between civilians and targets. You're choosing between civilians and terrorists. That's easy math." "Nothing about this is easy." "No. But it's right. And that's more than most operations can say." Linda nodded slowly. "If I don't make it back, you'll make it back. But if I don't, then I'll tell your story. I'll make sure people know. I'll make sure Linda Walker isn't forgotten." Morrison reached out, gripped her hand. "But you're going to make it back, because you're the best operator I've ever seen. And because 12 people are counting on you. And because you don't quit when people are counting on you." Linda squeezed his hand. "Thank you." "For what?" "For reminding me who I am." 6 hours later, Linda was on a plane. Civilian aircraft. No markings. The kind of ghost plane that flew routes that didn't officially exist. She sat alone in the back, gear packed, mind focused, heart steady. 60 beats per minute. Combat calm. She thought about the 12 people in that compound. Wondered who they were. Teachers, maybe. Doctors. Engineers. People who'd traveled to a war zone to help strangers, to build water treatment facilities and teach children and heal the sick. Good people doing good work. And now they were prisoners, waiting to be executed, waiting for someone to care enough to save them. Linda cared. Maybe that made her weak. Maybe that made her a terrible operator. Maybe that's why she'd walked away 3 years ago. But it also made her human. And tonight being human was enough. The plane landed in darkness. Linda grabbed her gear, met her handler, got a final briefing. Satellite shows 32 guards, 12 hostages in the south building. Guard rotation every 4 hours. Next rotation in 90 minutes. That's your window. Understood. Extraction team will be standing by 10 clicks out. Radio when you're clear. They'll come in hot. Got it. Captain Walker. The handler paused. Good luck. Linda nodded. I don't believe in luck. Then what do you believe in? Linda checked her rifle, chambered around. I believe in making my own odds. She walked into the darkness. The compound was 3 kilometers away. Linda covered the distance in 30 minutes. Slow. Careful. No mistakes. At 200 meters, she stopped. Set up observation. Counted guards. Watched patterns. Memorized timing. 32 guards like intel said. 12 hostages in the south building. Guard rotation in 60 minutes. Linda checked her watch. Synchronized with the rotation schedule. Then she moved. Breached the perimeter at the weakest point. 2 guards, both facing inward. Linda came from behind. Knife work, quick, quiet, professional. 2 down. She dragged the bodies into shadow, kept moving. The compound was larger than the satellite images suggested. More buildings, more guards, more variables. Linda adapted. That's what operators did. They adapted. She moved through darkness like water. Silent. Fluid. Lethal. Found the south building. 4 guards outside. 8 probably inside. 12 total, plus 20 more scattered around the compound. The math was bad. But Linda had worked with worse. She took the outside guards first. Suppressed rifle. 4 shots. 4 bodies. Then she breached the door. Inside chaos. Guards shouting, reaching for weapons. Linda fired. Moved. Fired. Moved. 8 guards down in 20 seconds. The hostages were in the back room. 12 people. Zip-tied. Scared. Some injured. "I'm American military," Linda said quickly. "I'm here to get you out. Stay quiet. Stay close. Do exactly what I say." One woman started crying. Relief, maybe. Or fear. Or both. Linda cut the restraints. "Can everyone walk?" Nods, yeses. One man's leg looked bad. Infection, maybe. "You!" Linda pointed at the healthiest-looking man. "Help him. Everyone else single file. Stay behind me. If shooting starts, you hit the ground and stay there. Clear. Clear." Linda moved to the door, checked the compound. Alarms were going off now. Guards running. 20-plus hostiles converging on their position. "Okay," Linda said. "This is going to get loud." She stepped out, started firing. Guards dropped. Linda moved, fired, reloaded, kept moving. The 12 hostages followed, stumbling, scared, but moving. Linda covered them, put her body between the hostages and the incoming fire, took rounds in her vest, kept firing, kept moving. They reached the perimeter. Linda threw smoke, created chaos, confusion. Then she led the hostages through the gap, into the darkness, away from the compound. Behind them, guards were shouting, searching, firing blindly into the smoke. Linda counted heads, 12 hostages. Everyone accounted for. "Keep moving," she said. 2 kilometers to extraction." They ran, stumbled, helped each other. The man with the bad leg was slowing down. Linda grabbed him, half-carried him. Behind them, the compound was chaos. Ahead, safety waited. 1 kilometer. Linda's radio crackled. "Shadow, this is Rescue 1. We have visual, coming in hot." "Roger that. We're moving to you." 500 meters. Helicopter lights appeared. The Black Hawk descended. Touched down. "Go, go, go." Linda pushed the hostages toward the bird, counted them as they climbed in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All accounted for. Linda jumped in last. The bird lifted off. Through the door, she watched the compound shrink, watched guards running, watched the mission site disappear. 12 people alive, maybe 20 guards dead, 0 American casualties. The math had worked out after all. The woman who'd been crying earlier reached out, grabbed Linda's hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Linda couldn't speak, just nodded. Around her, 12 people were crying, hugging each other. Alive. Safe. Free. Because Linda Walker had chosen to say yes. Had chosen to be Shadow one more time. Had chosen action over safety. The helicopter flew through darkness. Toward safety. toward home. Linda closed her eyes, thought about Morrison's promise, about telling her story, about making sure people knew Linda Walker existed. But looking at these 12 people, these strangers she'd never meet again, these lives she'd saved, Linda realized something. She didn't need people to know her story. She didn't need recognition or medals or legends. She just needed this. These moments, these lives, these choices. That was enough. Maybe she'd go back to cutting hair tomorrow. Maybe she wouldn't. Maybe Shadow was retired for good. Maybe she wasn't. But either way, Linda Walker had made her choice, and she'd stayed on the right side of the line. The helicopter landed at a forward base. Medical personnel rushed in. The 12 hostages were taken to treatment. Linda filed her report, debriefed, cleaned her weapons. Hastings found her 2 hours later. 12 for 12, Hastings said. That's a perfect mission, Captain. Nobody's perfect. I got lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. You're just that good. Hastings paused. We could use someone like you. Permanently. No more fake covers. No more hiding. Real operations. Real support. Real recognition. Linda looked at her. What's the catch? No catch. You'd be back in the field. Back to being Shadow full-time. And if I said no, then you go back to whatever cover we set up. Cut hair. Make small talk. Pretend you're normal. Hastings smiled. But we both know you're not normal. And we both know you're going to say yes eventually. Linda thought about that. Thought about Morrison and Ramirez and Martinez and Chen. Thought about the 12 hostages on that helicopter. Thought about Aleppo and the choice she'd made 3 years ago. I'm saying no, Linda said quietly. Hastings blinked. What? I'm saying no. I don't want to be Shadow full-time. I don't want real operations. I want to cut hair and make small talk and be normal, or as close to normal as I can get. But you're wasted on that. You have skills that I have skills that I'll use when I need to, when lives are on the line, when there's no other option. But I'm not going back to being an operator full-time. I can't. Because if I do that, I become the person who only knows how to solve problems with bullets. And I don't want to be that person anymore. Hastings was quiet. So what do you want? Linda thought about Sunday mornings, about pancakes, about nobody dying. I want to be the person who helps people live instead of the person who makes people die. And most of the time that means scissors instead of rifles. But sometimes it means both. And I'm okay with that now. Hastings nodded slowly. You're turning down a promotion, a real career, recognition. I'm choosing peace over glory, life over legend. Linda stood. Shadow will be there if you need her, but Linda Walker is who I want to be, and I'm done apologizing for that. Hastings extended her hand. Fair enough? Thank you for your service, Captain. Linda shook it. Thank you for asking. 6 months later, a new salon opened in Montana. Small place, Main Street. Sign outside read Sarah Mitchell, Hair and Style. Inside, Linda Walker cut hair and made small talk with ranchers and teachers and retirees who came in for trims. Nobody knew who she really was. Nobody knew what she'd done. Nobody knew that the quiet woman with the honey blonde hair had saved 16 lives in 2 impossible missions. That was fine. Linda liked it that way. In a drawer under the scissors, a trident pin lay hidden, engraved with Shadow from the Dream Team. Sometimes Linda took it out, held it, remembered. Then she put it back and went back to cutting hair. Because that's who Linda Walker was now. Not Shadow. Not a ghost. Not a legend. Just a woman who'd learned that strength wasn't about how many people you could kill, but about how many people you could save. and she'd saved enough for one lifetime. The line was clear now: action when needed, peace when possible, violence only to protect life, conscience over orders, always. That was Linda Walker's code. That was her line. That was her choice. And every morning when she opened her salon and picked up her scissors, she knew she'd made the right one. Because some skills never retire, they just wait quietly until someone needs them again. And Linda Walker would always be ready when that call came. But until then, she'd cut hair and live quietly and be the person she'd always wanted to be, someone who chose life over death every single time.